Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today is finally the day. I've been teasing since a few months, I think already, that I got a new machine and it's a beast. And it's an embroidery and sewing machine combination. So in today's video, I'm going to show you what I can do with that machine, and we're gonna embroider a lot. Let's get started, and I'm gonna show you all you need to know for this project working with the pfaff Creative Icon 2. So the project that I will be showing you today is the Airy Blouse Zelda. So it's going to be a very like airy blouse, as the name suggests. And we're gonna do a whole bunch of embroidery. I already started for the back piece with this cute hem embroidery right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically this border that I chose from mySewnet.com, where you can find a whole bunch of embroidery that you can just, upload to your cloud and then write to your machine and get started. That's exactly what I did, and I made this endless border that is super convenient with the Creative Icon 2. I'm going to show you why and how to work with it in just a second, but let's just quickly go about how you should start with this sort of embroidery right here. By the way, we're also going to do cuff embroideries and the embroidery for our collars, so it's going to be a whole bunch of stuff, and we're also going to do like colorful embroidery for the collar and the cuffs, but we're going to do, this kind of tone background embroidery that should not be too much in your face, basically. That's why I chose white for the hem embroidery. So as you can see right here, let me just quickly also add the camera up here. As you can see, I marked the pattern piece on a rather big piece of fabric. I did not cut out the actual fabric pattern piece yet. I just marked it with a removable pen so that I know where exactly the hem will sit and where I need to embroider. And you need a little bit of space to hoop the whole fabric, basically, or like parts of the fabric. I did one by one. That's why I chose to not cut out the whole piece already, but left it in this big piece of fabric to be able to hoop it. But I'm going to show you that for the front piece. So as I said, this is the back piece, and the hem embroidery is already finished. It's an endless border, so it just continues on right next to each other, which is super convenient, and I managed to somewhat get it to almost the side seam right here, so I'm just gonna cut it right where the embroidery ends, because this pattern is a continuation, I guess, of my beach dress sol. So I'm kind of using that pattern with obviously a few changes and adapted it to the Airy Blouse Zelda that I'm doing right now. So it is a very voluminous gathered piece of clothing. That's why I have the liberty to just say, yeah, I'm gonna do the side seam a little bit towards the left so that the embroidery finishes. Obviously, if you have something more fitted, you can't do that. But for this project, it is totally fine because it doesn't really matter that much. So I'm using a rayon for this blouse because I feel like this is gonna, fall really nicely, and I feel like that it's gonna be very organic. So obviously you can choose whatever fabric you want. It will work in a cotton poplin, for example, as well, very well, because the beach dress sol is made out of a cotton poplin. It's going to be more voluminous, obviously, because the fabric doesn't drape as well as this rayon drapes. This is a very lightweight rayon, by the way. But I think this will look way more elegantly if you're using, something like this rather than a cotton poplin. But obviously, you're the designer. You can choose whatever you want. So I'm going to leave about 10 centimeters of space right here at the hem, and then just cut off a piece of fabric right here, and we're going to use that to draw on the pattern pieces. And I'm also going to cut it in half because the front piece has the button placket right there and it's not laying on fold, so I want two similarly sized pieces of fabric that I'm working with. Okay, after a quick iron, I'm gonna take my pattern piece and just put it right here, more towards the upper corner here, so that I have the space at the hem. And now I'm gonna draw on the outline. I mean, since I already know which pattern I'm gonna use, I basically just need to loop it and we're good to go. I'm gonna use this material as a stabilizer. You always need some sort of stabilizer with embroidery, otherwise it's just not gonna work. The machine's just gonna eat the fabric up. So I'm gonna use this tear away fabric stabilizer right here. This is super convenient as you literally just tear it away, as the name suggests, after you're done. So it basically is only going to stabilize wherever the sewing machine embroiders over. So this is the wrong side right here. And you can not see it at all because I tore it away and it's just sitting like inside here, but you can't really tell. And yeah, it just leaves the fabric with the usual feeling of the fabric. It's not gonna, make it thicker or anything like that, which is super convenient for this, as the hem obviously is gonna guide the drape somewhat. So you want it to not make it any thicker than you need it. So that's why I'm using this fabric stabilizer right here. I'm just gonna grab the hoop that I will be using, which is the 26 by 20 centimeter hoop. You're just gonna declamp it. And now this piece where you clip it into the machine is gonna sit on the bottom. You're gonna put the stabilizer on top here and then the fabric. And now I have to, kind of think how I'm going to do that here. Probably I'm just gonna let the machine just like base around the design, because I kind of have to put the design in the middle of the hoop. Otherwise it's not gonna be able to embroider that close to the hoop border, more or less. So I'm just gonna put it in here for now, clamp it, and then I'm going to kind of pull on the fabric to tighten it so that it doesn't wiggle around underneath the machine. And now this is very secure and we can go over to the sewing machine and actually start the embroidery for this. So this right here is the machine. Let's switch it on. So as you can see, it's the pfaff Creative Icon 2. I love these sounds. So I want to go to embroidery, then it's going to tell me that it has to calibrate the arm. So basically you have a cloud where you can upload all the designs that you like to from MySewNet, which is the software and also the website where you get all the designs. This one is rather big at the moment. I think I made it as small as it can be for the design. And before I'm going to put the embroidery hoop in, I'm actually going to tell the machine to start. I'm going to do everything in one color because I want the arm to go to the position that it needs to be. And now I'm going to do the precise positioning. And now it's going to show me with the projector on where the design sits. And once you do precise positioning, you can tell the machine to go to specific spots. So I told it to show me this corner down here. I hope you can see that. The projector shows me the corner down here. And it's not where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be right here. So what I'm doing, I'm basically changing the position. The machine is telling me exactly where I'm going to have my design sit. And next up, I'm going to use my second point, which I'm going to put on the upper edge, and it's obviously also not where it's supposed to be. So now I can turn the design and have it right at the line that I made, which is my hem, and now I can just hit start. Okay, so the embroidery is done now. This is what it looks like. And now we're basically just gonna move the hoop up and repeat the same thing. We're gonna use precise positioning again to just put it right next to this one right here. And that's how you're gonna do an infinite border. Okay, everything is now sewn. I'm gonna cut all the loose threads. And now once that's done, I'm just going to tear away the stabilizer. What I will be doing as well is tear away the stabilizer in between my design here. So these small itty bitty pieces also need to go. I went ahead and added an embroidery to my collar. This is what it looks like. I just did these cute flowers that are gonna look hopefully really pretty once the collar is finished. I have the next embroidery already finished right here. This is one of the 2 cuffs that I will be doing. Though I shrunk the design to fit the perimeter and therefore I skipped the orange part, which would have been in this flower right here, just because it would have been way too bulky. I tried it out with another piece right here and it's just not nice. So my fabric right here is not yet cut to the size of the pattern piece because you need to hoop it. I ironed on fusible no-show mesh. This works as a stabilizer. On top of that, I will be using this tearaway stabilizer as well, just to have maximum stabilization, as this embroidery pattern is a very tight embroidery, and I feel like with my fabric, that is a very delicate fabric. It needs all the help that it can get, so that's what I'm using. Both of these. And before I go over to my sewing machine, I'm actually going to draw on the shape of my cuff. And it's important to know where the center line is because the inside of the cuff does not need embroidery. And now we can go over to the embroidery machine again. Finally, everything that needed to be embroidered is prepared, everything's done, and we can finally actually start sewing. So this took a long time to prepare, obviously, because I did a whole bunch of embroidery. So let's start and let's go. So I'm gonna start with the collar because that is something that we can quickly do. So I have all of my 4 collar pieces ready. I have, my collar and my collar stands all paired together, and we're just going to put right sides together of collar and collar band, and you're gonna find your center front notch right here, which is gonna match up with your stitching line in your collar. So right here, 1 centimeter measured down and inwards, and it's gonna match up with the stitching line at the center front notch. Then we're gonna put together the center back, which is also marked with a notch, and repeat the same for the other side and also for the other collar. And now we're gonna stitch from this needle all the way over here to that needle and repeat the same for the other collar. Okay, so let's iron the seam allowance down into the collar band. And the same for the other collar. And what I'll be doing here as well is iron the seam allowance of the collar band towards the, like this seam right here. I'm also gonna iron up into the collar band. And I'm gonna go ahead and put right sides of both collar pieces together. One thing that I want to do is cut into the seam allowances here at the collar point, because otherwise it's just gonna be a bunch of fabric that doesn't need to be there, and it's gonna show once you want to flip everything right sides out. So I'm just taking away this corner and then also clipping into the seam allowance right here. And with that prepared, we're gonna put right sides together and match up the point that we just, cleaned up right here. We're gonna match that up. the previously ironed up seam allowance, we're just gonna, you know, sew over that. Then it's gonna lay nicer. And now for the rest, we're gonna, you know, the inner collar is a bit smaller than the outer collar so that it lays better. So we have to ease both pieces together while sewing. Then let's match up the center back. And repeat the same for the other side. And now we can go ahead and sew the collar. And with that now done, we can go ahead and cut down the seam allowance, especially here in the corners. I'm going to cut down the seam allowance all the way down to the collar band. And also the curve here. And with that, we're going to turn the whole collar right sides out. And with that now we're gonna iron the ditch of the seam to the wrong side, or like to the inner collar in this case, so that everything looks neat and tidy from the outside. And right here at the collar band, I'm actually gonna turn the ditch like around. So we're gonna iron the ditch towards, you know, the collar side that has the embroidery on, which is gonna sit on the inside of the, like the collar band is gonna sit on the inside, like towards your skin. That's why you wanna iron the ditch of the seam towards the outer collar right there. And that should be it. So that's what it's gonna look like. So let's actually work on the cuffs and the sleeves. So I prepared one cuff already like so, and we're gonna iron the second one as well. So let's iron it at the fold line. And then we're gonna iron the seam allowance of the right side of the cuff towards the inside like this, just as preparation once we put the cuff on the sleeve. It's just easier that way. And now let's put right sides together. Keep the seam allowance folded like this and close the short sides on both sides. Okay, let's cut down the seam allowance right here. And turn everything right sides out, and then I'm going to show you how I did this cute little border stitch on the cuffs as well. The stitch that I'm using is actually an 8, so techniques, and then I go to 8.7, and the number 3 is the one that I am using right here. I did not change anything for the settings or anything like that, so that's exactly what I'm doing here, and you can already see how cute this stitch looks. And then to sew, I'm actually going to take some tearaway stabilizer and lay it underneath the whole edge that I want to sew the border on. And with the projector you can see where exactly you need to put the edge of your piece, which is the red line right here. So now you just have to start your seam. And the machine basically does it all for you, so you just need to keep an eye on it. And so just keep this line straight, and that's it. That's all you have to do. And now I'm gonna do the small sides as well, but I'm gonna stop like a centimeter before the fold line here starts, as I need to, you know, maneuver this around a bit once I'm putting the cuff onto the sleeve, so I don't want to have any issues there. So to prepare my corpus, basically, I'm going to put right sides of my front and back pieces together and close the side seam right here. And I'm also going to overlock that and iron the seam allowance towards the back, same to the other side here. And then we're gonna ruffle using a ruffling foot, actually, that I'm super excited to try out because I have not yet. Everything else is basically the same as the beach dress sole minus the hem ruffles, and we do different sleeves. So let's start. Okay, I basically just installed the ruffling foot per the instructions. I put it on 1. You have the options of 1, 6, 12, and 0. 0 is just a normal straight stitch, and 6 is every 6th stitch it's gonna do a fold. 12 is every 12th stitch it's gonna do a fold, but I wanted to have like continuous folds with every stitch that I'm doing. So I have it on 1, and now you just need to feed it through the metal thingies right here, put down the foot, and it's good to go. So let's start. And that's how it ruffled it. So it ruffled it pretty tightly. I think this is too tight, so I might have to redo this. It has to align with this seam right here, and I can already tell you it's way too gathered for that. Obviously, it's like half the length that I need, so maybe we're gonna try the 6. This looks better, and that is something that we can work with. And with that prep now, I'm gonna go ahead and sew the yoke on. That is the same as I did for my beach dress sole. I'm always gonna flash on the screen the timestamp where you have to go to for the other video to like see how it's done. I'm sorry that this is like such a hassle, but because of all of the embroidery and everything surrounding this machine, there is only so much I can fit in one video, and I don't think that it is necessary to show you how to sew the same pattern twice. So I'm just, you know, refer to that video at this time and you're good to go. Okay, let's finish this blouse. So we're going to make the sleeves together, as that is different to the beach dress sole. As you can see right here, I finished the bodice of the blouse basically completely apart from one sleeve that I'm gonna do with you guys together. Now, the first thing that we're gonna do is actually the slit, because we have a cuff, and a cuff always calls for a slit. I already cut into my sleeve hem where it's indicated in the pattern for the slit. I'm just gonna give this a quick press. So I've done slits like this a couple of times before, but what you want to do is open up the slit like this so that it is one continuous line, and you want to kind of arrange up here so that there aren't a whole bunch of folds. And then you're going to take bias tape. I'm just going to use pre-made bias tape in this white color, and you're going to put one of the pre-ironed sides. I just like to open it back up because it's easier for me to pin it onto my slit. You're gonna pin this like this on top of my slit. And because it is a slit that is just cut into the sleeve, you don't really have seam allowance. So what you're gonna do is use 5 millimeters of seam allowance. So you're gonna start off with 5 millimeters on either end, and you're gonna work your way towards the center, or like the tip of the slit, where you're gonna come to almost 0 centimeters, like maybe a millimeter. So I like to put one needle into the tip right here, and then it comes to, like, it gradually goes down decreases to 0 or 1 millimeter, and then it gradually increases back up again to 5 millimeters. And now you want to sew at 5 millimeters from here to here and catch the tip of the slit. You want to catch it like just where the needle is. You want to catch it at just 1 millimeter, not more, not less, and make sure to catch it. You need to catch it. And yeah, we're going to come back once that's sewed. So you can see clearly here that I just caught the sleeve fabric, and we're not going to tuck and pull or anything on it. We're just going to iron the seam allowance into the bias tape. And now we can fold over the bias tape so that it just covers the stitching line that we just sewed. Iron it down. Also make sure that at the tip of the slit you're going to cover these stitches nicely and you're not going to iron any folds into your sleeve. And now we can put pins in to fix it in place, and then we're going to sew very closely to that edge all the way to the other side. Okay, and now we want to iron the slit, and you're going to iron the opening towards the back. This down here is the back. So ironing towards the back means that you need to iron the opposite side over, like flat, like this, and the side that lays towards the back right on top. And now from the right side you can check your slit and how it looks like. And as you can see, you can go into the slit from the back. And now you want to add a bar tack, like right here, like in a diagonal way. It doesn't have to be pretty, it's just a functional thing, and nobody's gonna ever see it again. So what I like to do next before like closing the side seams and then adding the cuffs is to add a gathering stitch from your sleeve notches so that it is prepared for once you want to put the sleeve into the bodice, since it's just easier to do that on a flat surface rather than once it's a tube. So let's add a gathering stitch. You can gather it to, you know, the approximate size already, but we're gonna do the perfect measurement and size once we're putting it onto our bodice. And while we're at it, we can also put right sides together after the gathering stitch and close the side seam and overlock it. So now that the sleeve is a tube finally, we can go ahead and gather the hem to fit the size of our cuff. This is the cuff right here. So we're just gonna use a gathering stitch once again to gather from, you know, one side of the slit all the way to the other side of the slit, and then we're gonna size it down to the actual size of the cuff. What I like to do while gathering is to already pin one side to the cuff. So I'm doing wrong sides together with the inside of the cuff, the side that is not embroidered, so that I have an end point. And I can see that I need to gather just a tiny bit more, just a centimeter or so. So like this, and now I'm just gonna knot this so that the gathers don't come loose. And I can go ahead and arrange the gathers and just even it out a tiny bit. And I wanna have an even amount throughout the whole cuff seam. Like that, and we're gonna sew this. And then we're gonna fold the cuff over, covering that seam and top stitching the outside, or like the shell cuff, onto the sleeve. So now it's time to do the buttonholes. And for that, I'm just going to use my pattern piece and mark the center of my buttonholes onto my cuff with an erasable marker. And then I'm going to use my ruler and draw in the buttonholes that measure 1.5 centimeters. I'm just going to do the buttonholes with my machine as well. It has a buttonhole foot. It's super easy to do the buttonholes there, so let's head over again. Okay, and now the cuffs are done. The sleeve is basically done. We just need to put it into our blouse. So let's do that. So what I like to do first is just match up the side seam, because that is a point that we know needs to get sewn together. And then the sleeve point here in the front should match up with the yoke seam. So we can also match up the underarm seam here in the front already. And now we have to gather the sleeve cap so that it fits our shoulder seam. So let me just grab the bobbin thread of our gathering stitch. And as you can see, this is already enough, so I can knot this end here and even everything out afterwards. And now we can go ahead and sew the sleeve on and then also overlock. Okay, I'm going to add the remaining buttonholes on the button tape, and then of course also the buttons themselves off camera. Sadly, my machine cannot do the buttons that I want to do because they have the hole like underneath. If it were a normal button with like 4 holes, you could potentially also, you know, sew them on by machine. So I hope you enjoyed this video where I'm showing you what I've been hiding basically the whole time and what I've been using to create these beautiful embroideries throughout all of my videos, or like a few of my videos, and you know, dive a little bit into what the machine can do. Obviously, there are endless possibilities with this machine, it feels like. It can sew on pearls, for example, it can felt, it can do cut work, like a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't even, you know, mentioned, which is such a crazy thing. But I am of course doing more projects like this with that machine and everything that the machine can do in the future. So to not miss out on any of these, make sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. In the meantime, you can go check out my socials. Links to that are in the video description down below. The most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one coming is to head over to my Etsy store. People that are, you know, into pattern making and stuff like that can easily just adjust the beach dress sole to this pattern right here. So there is the link to the pattern down below where you can get that and make it yourself. I'm super excited to see your guys' versions. Maybe you also have an embroidery machine and, you know, do some exciting embroidery as well. Of course, all of the embroidery details, the, you know, designs that I used and the stitches that I used and so on will be in the sewing instructions, as well as links to the specific files online on my sewnet.com. A special thanks obviously also to pfaff, who sponsored the machine and this video kindly enough. And for everybody who's interested, I will be in the Your Style issue in autumn with this blouse, so that's something exciting too. So I'm making this blouse also to be featured in the magazine that they have. If you haven't heard of it, I'll link it down below so you can check it out. If that's something that is interesting to you, you can definitely check that out, and I will be in the next one and in the ones after that as well. So that's super exciting. That's also obviously why I went a little crazy with all of the embroidery on this specific project. I mean, I have, I think, like 4 different embroidery spots and then a whole bunch of decorative stitches in this in this design right here, which is super exciting. I love it, but obviously that is something that I did for that specifically. So, you know, that's just something that I wanted to mention, as it's something I am looking very much forward to. A special thank you to all of my channel members. You can get exclusive benefits through the link in the description down below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!